very much. And it's great to be back here in Queensbury and this part of the district. It's such an enormous district, you know. A couple of days ago I was in Watertown and Lowville, and then you got to come all the way back across. I live near Plattsburgh, and then this evening worked all day, jumped in the car down here this evening, and then again tomorrow all day here in this part of the district. So the district has grown, I think, as everybody's noticed over the years, as we've lost congressional seats in New York State. So Larry's given me, I think, a very good introduction. I grew up in Peru, New York. I went to West Point. I was appointed by Senator Jacob Javits from New York City. So it's kind of funny that a Catholic kid from Clinton County, New York, was appointed to West Point by a Jewish senator from New York City. But that's a testament to this nation and, you know, how we do things. And so I went to West Point. I spent 4 years there, and then I joined the Army. You don't really have a choice at that point, okay? You've got to join the Army because you just finished West Point. And I served 28 years, and I served all around the world. Overseas, I've spent 2 years in Korea, 4 years in Germany, multiple trips to the Middle East, and then I've served in 10 of our United States, to include 2 which are pretty remarkable, which is Alaska and Hawaii. So anyhow, I've seen a lot of this world, I've seen a lot of this nation, and I retired from the service 2 years ago, this month, and I decided that I was going to try to make a difference. I mean, the nation really in many ways has invested in me for 32 years. And I felt like I had something that I could offer, that I could give back. I've got 4 kids. You know, I've got my mother who lives up near us in Peru. My father's buried there. My sister and her family live there. And I just felt like I had things to offer that aren't being found in today's political scene, at least in this area. And I feel like I can make a significant difference for this region and the people who live in it. And so 1st of July I announced, and I've started this congressional campaign. There's 2 of us right now, me, I'm having a campaign, and a guy I hired. So we're fighting uphill, okay? It's us against, you know, a wide array of forces out there. Let's just leave it at that. So we finished the first quarter of this campaign, which everyone looks at you, you're under a microscope, they're trying to figure out if you're going to hold up, if you're going to be able to raise money, if you're not going to, like, go out in public and say something so remarkably stupid that you disqualify yourself from further consideration. And so far so good. It's been a good quarter. I've never been in politics before, so I've had to find my political voice. How do you talk about some of these things that, you know, I can take a battalion of tanks 1,500 miles across the open desert, all right? I've gotten pretty good at that. I can set up an L-shaped ambush, and I've got pretty good at that. But finding my voice politically has been a process. And there's issues and topics and things which are of concern to people who live here, which frankly, up until this point, just weren't on my plate. And I've had to put them on my plate and learn how to talk about them and learn how to, you know, learn what is on people's minds. Very interesting what you brought up a moment ago, Larry, about these resolutions where a town or a district or whatever would pass a resolution telling their representative in an elected body how to vote. And, you know, I find that interesting because that's where I take my cues, and that's why I will want to hear from you this evening. You know, if it's something that benefits the common good of the 21st District of New York State, I'm probably in favor of it. Okay? And we have too little of that. We have too little selfless service in politics. We have folks who want to, you know, support a major party, and their agenda is the party's agenda. We have people who are in it for personal gain. You know, they want to do something for a certain period of time and then graduate to something that's much more lucrative. And none of those things fire me up and inspire me. What inspires me is what I see as an opportunity to serve again. all right, to serve the folks that I grew up with up in Clinton County, and then Essex County and Franklin County. That corner of the district is really what I know best. But now as I travel more and get out to other parts of this district, meet other people, there's a lot of commonality in how people see things and how they think. So anyhow, that's a little bit about me, that's a little bit about my outlook, a little bit of a progress report. So following Larry's agenda here, I guess it's your turn. So I would entertain, any questions you may have or comments you want to make. This has been an education for me, so hopefully you can help me further that tonight. Yes, sir.
That doesn't turn me on just that you want to serve, because I think that your role as a congressman is to educate and to have some kind of burning issue that you want to deal with and that you want to fire people up with. Because it's burning in you. Just saying I want to serve is like I'm for omelets and apple pie, which is the problem with the last couple of Democratic candidates that we've had. What turns you on? What are you passionate about? What do you want to educate us about?
All right, I'll start with this. So this year, 2014, the average median wage in the United States is less than it was last year in 2013. All right? You always got to wonder where the source of your numbers come from, but I read that in the paper the other day. Somebody did a legitimate survey, and we, as the middle class, are earning less in inflation-adjusted dollars this year than we were last year, and yet we're in the midst of a so-called recovery. If we go back to 2007, the median age in this country is 6% less than it was in 2007. And if we go back to 1999, when my youngest son was born, it's 7% more in 1999 than we are earning in 2014. That fires me up. That is not a trend line which is sustainable in our country, because once a country loses its middle class, if the middle class doesn't have a reason to participate in the political process and be invested in a nation because that nation is giving back to them, then we risk great ill. And so that fires me up.
How do you understand how that happened and what can you do about it?
Well, I think, for me to stand right here and solve it all tonight, I'll give you a couple things. All right, one, we could fix our tax code. All right, our tax code is upended right now. And it's something that can be addressed and should be addressed by our Congress. But did we see a single tax bill or tax reform bill or an effort to put things in a better way in the current Congress? No, we haven't. And so that's something I think that we as citizens, we should put people in office who are willing to do that kind of thing. Yes, sir.
Mike, did Chris Gibson teach you when you were at West Point?
No, he and I were peers. We both taught at about the same time at West Point. I actually was a couple years ahead of him. He was younger than I was in the Army. I taught history, and he taught political science. So we taught in different departments. I know people who worked with him, but I don't believe, there's a lot of people teaching at West Point, but I don't believe we overlapped at West Point. I taught 94 to 98. I'd have to go back and check and see when exactly he taught there.
Because he was obviously popular here,
Right.
then when they redistricted.
Correct.
So he still has a fair amount of support in this area,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Well, I sense that too, and he's one of the people, I think, in the middle of the political spectrum. Although he's on the Republican side, he's in the middle of the political spectrum, and he is, best I can read, more or less focused on trying to solve problems and get things done, which is what we need more of.
I want to ask you, the minimum wage has been stagnant. You advocated to go up to like $15 an hour or something, or higher?
Yeah, I am not an economist, but we absolutely must raise the minimum wage. We must do it in a predictable way so that there are, so that our businesses and our society can plan these things out, and all that is possible. But right now, as you know, I talked about median wage before, family median wage, that was the statistic I used earlier. Our minimum wage is at the lowest. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but it is lower than it has been in a very long time when we look at inflation-adjusted dollars. Yes?
Well, I agree with what you said about the tax structure, which since Reagan has, well, it's been reversed in terms of what,
Right.
now they want more corporate, lower corporate taxes, lower tax. But I also want people to use the word working class as well as middle class, because there's been such a negative towards unions and workers in our whole country, as if you hear Scott talk, as if we have to defeat unions, we have to defeat and I would like to hear a voice that speaks for workers' history, and workers' wages, and also in terms of environmental stuff, that one of the growing industries for workers could be the solar and environmental sustainable resources. That is one way to bring local work back to our area, so I don't know how you stand on it.
Well, I think you made a couple statements in
Yeah.
there, and I would agree with everything you said. I think that, you know, the green energy industry is a way in which, I mean, it's already happening here. I just was at a wind farm in Lewis County on last Saturday, and it was remarkable to see 195 turbines that provide, if I have it right, 2% of New York State's power needs when the wind is blowing. And then we have another whole bank of wind turbines up in bridging Franklin and Clinton County. So that's an area that, you know, obviously is ripe for growth, and we as a district should get on board that trend.
And solar too, because a lot of people are using solar, so we need subsidizing solar to get it up instead of subsidizing oil and fossil fuels.
And you see, you know, New York State has begun to do some good things with that, and you begin to see more and more solar development. You see residential, and a new thing that was pushed through just recently is to, I don't know the mechanics of it, but it's going to encourage schools at least to put solar collection panels on their buildings. You know, so we have a lot of square footage there that could be used for that purpose. Yes, ma'am.
And a segue,
Uh-huh.
Homo and our legislature has now have a $961 million New York Sun initiative. It's going to be a strong volunteer activity, but it's promoting the use of more solar energy.
Right.
And part of that is in December of 2016, the federal tax credit will go away. So that would certainly be something to offer up as a candidate, I would think, to continue that tax credit for
Right.
putting solar
Right.
panels on your home.
Yeah.
A big credit.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let me build on that point for a second. You know, we're in a remarkable place in this country right now, and that we have an abundance of energy unlike at any other time in our history. And much of that comes from the way in which some states have extracted natural gas, and our neighbors to the south in Pennsylvania they are awash in natural gas right now. Natural gas should be the bridge fuel. You know, we should begin to phase out as quickly as we can. And oh, by the way, economic forces are killing coal right now. All right, coal is no longer going to be economically viable as we move forward. Natural gas, so it shouldn't be propped up. That's another point. You know, we should make it there. But natural gas can be a bridge fuel as we move to the green alternatives that really have to be where our future is centered. And so, you know, I think we're in a position to do that if we choose to do it, instead of passing legislation that prompts
To
it.
build up the gas industry rather than focus more on green energy.
Right. Right. So I'll
Well,
hand over
well, I
here.
was
Yes.
gonna build on Bob's question and Diane's question. Is that part of your passion and what you see for your kids and my grandchildren? I mean, are you gonna fight for not letting that bridge happen and just go for, you know, a lot of the like solar and, I mean, do you?
Absolutely.
So that's something you feel
I
really
do,
strongly
I do.
about?
I mean, know, we have treated this world very poorly, in my opinion. All right, and we're now starting to have to absorb some of the costs of it. And if things continue at the current rate, I mean, we have the hottest 2 months on record, the last, I guess it was July and August. If these things, you know, and of course this all varies, but if that continues, this is going to go quicker and quicker and quicker, and it will make the problems we have right now look pretty inconsequential. Okay, if you know the worst happens or we move at a faster rate, so we absolutely have to do everything we can as a nation to make change. But oh, by the way, we have to encourage the rest of the world to do the same.
And does that include upholding the fracking policies of New York State when and if the governorship
Yes.
changes?
Yes.
So you would be pro not
That's
fracking in
correct.
New York State?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, just like step back and look at it in a larger perspective for a minute.
Uh-huh.
The Democratic Party, since FDR, has always supported progressive income tax. And from my point of view, I think that since Ronald Reagan, it has reversed itself. And no little point. I know that during the 1950s, for example, corporate tax accounted for 34% of all the taxes that were taken in. Now it's 9%. And we're still hollering that it's too much. In the 1950s, we had the very highest tax rate was 92%. Now it's down to 30. It's around 30, 35, 32%. The thing about it is that has helped to destroy this country. Would you be in favor of trying to restore progressive income tax? I think the past proved its effective and did in fact work. I think it's critical for the Democratic Party to address it.
I agree. I think we need to redo the tax code. The tax code is now been largely compromised, and people are not paying their fair share. And that has affected all of us as a nation. And it compromises how the role we can play in the world also. So I think we need to make significant fundamental changes to the tax code. Again, these are the things that I have never addressed in my adult life before, so I got a lot to learn in that regard. But the current state of affairs is not sustainable.
So you'll be asked for specifics though on how to change the tax code rather than let's change it.
Right. I understand.
And they are.
I'm not ready to go there yet. I mean, frankly, I have been drinking from a fire hose for 3 months. And, all right, just think about that for a minute. Drinking from a fire hose, all right? It's a pretty good visual. So, I am not ready to go there yet. And, let me just make a point here. I don't think we need more experts in Washington. What we need in Washington are people who are willing to lead, who are willing to be presented with options and ideas and then make the tough decisions that must be made that help us move forward as a nation. Okay? A lot of people look at elected officials and say, well, you have to know everything on every single topic. I disagree. We need people who are smart enough and dedicated enough to make good decisions which don't necessarily benefit them or their narrow constituency. And I think we find that lacking in our society. Not just our society. In particular, I'm concerned about our political representation. Yes,
I think
ma'am.
there's been such a move in our whole country to privatize everything rather than preserve community. And I know the attack on Social Security, and as if Social Security is in danger. I think it was Joe Brand originally, way back, it said there would be no danger, it would be totally solid if people did not, if it wasn't capped at $125,000 in terms of people's contribution. I would like you to support a bill like that, and also this way, and I love Dean's proposal of getting Medicare lower and lower and lower, working towards universal health care, because that would be an easy way to do it, because now our medical system is pretty awful. So on Social Security and Medicare is a way of kind of lowering that to 55-50 towards universal health care. I would love that to be our position. Because
Okay.
that's my position.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, I was gonna mention, you mentioned it too, because do you believe in something like having Medicare for all?
Which is the Canada system.
Like the Canada system in Canada, for example.
So you're talking about a single payer program.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
You know, I spent 28 years in the Army, and we had, in essence, a single payer program, all right? You know, so I'm very familiar with that.
It's a good program.
Pardon me?
It's good, it was good, wasn't it?
Well, it works very well. When you're talking about readiness of soldiers, the last thing you need is for them to be concerned about, you know, their own health, their own welfare. I mean, we didn't get it right all the time, and the VA is a good example of that. The VA has its own issues and its own problems right now, and it's associated with military health care. You know, whether or not we should move to a single payer program in this country right now, I'm not ready to come out on that yet.
Because-
I just don't know enough about it.
Well, why don't you get educated about it?
Excuse me?
You need to get educated.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Do you realize that people in Europe spend twice as much for their, or we pay twice as much for our health care as in Europe? That if we had a single payer healthcare system in just in New York State, we'd save $30 billion. What's wrong with saving $30 billion?
And their health is better. Their life expectancy is longer and their live birth rate is higher.
Yes, and you know all these things and you still are wishy-washy about it.
I'm at the beginning of this process.
And he's not saying wishy-washy.
Yeah, I think wishy-washy is unfair.
No, but you said there's a lot of information about how important single-payer healthcare and how much benefit it is for this country and how much we could save and how much, to me, it's a no-brainer. And I want to support a candidate who is for single-payer healthcare system. If you can't, I'm not very supportive of you if you can't do that.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I commend your courage to be able to stand up as a political candidate and say, I don't know yet. And I think that's something we could use more of because it's honest.
Yeah.
Let me,
Go ahead. Thank you.
let me share a couple points that
Yeah.
I'm sure Bob knows very well. And this is a little personal. I was meeting a friend for dinner last week in Saratoga Springs, and he was having a medical emergency on the side of the road. And so I met him, and we had to sit there and discuss, based upon the cost of the ambulance, whether we should try to drive him to the emergency room or whether we should call an ambulance. And I just want to point out the absurdity to be considering the cost of life-saving medical procedures in the moment.
Right.
And we have a system of what is basically holding a gun to a patient's head and say, here, pay for this treatment or die. It's extortion. I mean, there's a system, or there's a thing in contract law that says contracts negotiated under duress are not enforceable. But for some reason, when you're under the duress of cancer or heart disease or something else, for some reason our courts have pulled those contracts.
That's a remarkable way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this Skrelly guy, what's the guy that bought
Oh,
this?
he raised the price of that drug by
I mean,
5,000%.
we spend part of the problem in the United States, we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world by a factor of 2. And that's part of the reason is that Medicare and Medicaid, the largest health insurance companies in this country, are legally barred from negotiating drug prices with pharmaceutical companies, which is the reason why a drug in Canada that might cost you $1 a pill will cost you $700 a pill in the United States. One of your opponents in this race, Matt Funicello, did make a brilliant point in one debate. We are twice as expensive as any other healthcare system in the world, and fully 60% of our healthcare dollar already comes from taxpayer money. So creating a single-payer healthcare system is not a matter of increasing taxes or revenues, it's just merely a matter of restructuring the system that we have in place, and we could actually probably cut 10% of our healthcare spending, provide single-payer healthcare. And part of that comes down to allowing the public providers to negotiate. So we're spending more money as taxpayers to get less beneficial healthcare to benefit private insurance companies and hospital executives. And it's not even going to the doctors, it's going to business people. So some things as you're, drinking from a fire hose.
Right.
Brush up a little bit more.
Good.
I think I'd like to make a correction with Bob said. Bob, I think it's $45 billion a year, not $30 billion. New York State by single payer. I think that's the
Okay, well, the main point is that if you're going to represent us, you really have to know what some of the real issues are. And one of the real issues is we're wasting a hell of a lot of money for a health system that could be a hell of a lot better. And I implore you to get educated about that.
That's why it's here, Bob.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
May I make a second point?
Yes.
Think about it, Medicare and Medicaid, so they have 3% overhead. Turn of the Wall Street, which is what the Republicans want to be like 30% overhead, which is where the savings come in when you put them on service, exactly like it is with the military. You know, put it in there, you have the enormous cost savings, and that's where a lot of the costs are saved, right there. Just cut out 27%.
Right,
Yeah.
good. Yes,
All right, I have one quick question.
Okay.
And then I have a follow-up following Patrick here. The quick question is this district your home?
yes.
Okay, and the follow-up question, the follow-up comment is that I had a brother who died at 30 years and 12 days old. And among his final words were, how much will this cost? So, I mean, that's just basically a comment, but just
Yeah.
letting you know, he had no insurance. And he didn't go to the doctor because he didn't know how much it would cost. And it cost him his life. So, I'm sorry.
No.
It's not really to be serious.
No, it's a good point, and that's the kind of poignant, I mean, that's the poignancy that makes what we are all interested and what I am trying to do real, right? So. Yes.
So, just to follow up on Mike's question, you moved back to this district from California less than 2 years ago? What's your-
Right, I left the Army in October of 2013. I was stationed in Colorado, and I moved back here last April. So April of 2013. I now live in our family home.